Every country, region, city, and town has their own unique people, food, and culture. So let me take you on a ride today. You came here for the truth. A lighter video for you today. And I love the rain. It is very clear and evident from this photo. The trip begins in Amsterdam. You could see that from the broken umbrella in the background. The wide assortment of bikes that are located literally everywhere in this city. A very unique city in many ways. So I'll touch on a few points that I saw while I was there, and I'll cover another city as well. This is Amsterdam, a very unique place. Now, geographically, where it is located, you can see that it is, in fact, a hub for a lot of Europe. It's positioned very close to London, to Belgium, to Germany, and others. A short train ride, and you can be in many different cities. While I was there, I was able to meet with people that I knew from the city and gave me a good insight as to how it really is, in addition to all the tourist spots that I checked out. And one of the things that I really knew that I needed to see while I was there, this is very important, in fact one of the most important things of my trip, was this: the Dutch tulips. I've researched this before, I've read it in many books, but I've never seen it for myself until now. The Dutch tulips, even today, several hundred years later, are still ingrained, still important to the Dutch people. One of the things that is different from what we had seen a few years ago is the price. Many years ago, we had the Tulip Mania. Tulips have long held a significant role in Dutch history and culture ever since they were introduced to the Netherlands from the Ottoman Empire in the mid-1500s, and still today very important. The only difference is that all of that speculation in its price doesn't exist today. There's a market that is in the, let's say, central area, right in the tourist hotspot, next to all of these different shops and everything else. It's a floral market primarily, and they have a lot of Dutch tulips. Every color, shape, and size is available there. But that speculation in the price, it's not present. The reason I mention this is because we may see an asset class rise and rise and rise and rise and rise. And all of that speculation and hot money may flow into it, and people believe that even if it goes down, the price can continue to rise. But look at tulips as an example. Now, of course, this is the most extreme example that we've seen, but I just note that just because something has risen doesn't mean that it can rise in the future. That is not a good indication of using the history in order to prove something from the future. It doesn't work like that. And that is one very clear example to me. So, looking at further into this here, the House of Tulips, this was at the airport. I want to cover something else from the airport too, but let me stay on the topic of tulips for a moment here. This was basically so people can buy some of these seeds and the bulbs, and they can take them home to where they live. The Amsterdam Tulip Museum, I saw this, and of course I had to go in. This is a picture of the building here. Basically, you get a little bit of history. You get to buy them there as well if you want. As I said, I studied this in many books, many different authors. I know quite a bit about this, and today, still, this is ingrained within the society, in the Dutch people, that tulips are something to behold. But the price of which isn't there. So that's really what I wanted to make note of. I saw these everywhere. Tulips are everywhere. And of course, I was hitting a lot of the tourist spots. So that's part of it. But you definitely know that you get that feeling of what's happening within there. This is just basically the streets here. This is next to the central area, next to the central station. The people, the Dutch people there locally are very nice, very accommodating. They spoke English. They really, I got the sense that they really wanted tourists there, or at least they were polite to them, whereas in some other cities you don't really get that. So I thought that was very good as a tourist coming there. The people that I knew from there gave me good insight of where to go and the people to see and all the places to visit. So I definitely hit a lot of the good spots. Some of the unique things out of there obviously being the red light district, which is something that is a sight to behold, that's for sure. Quite unique in its own way and different. I don't know how else to put it, but definitely worth going to see how this society, I don't know if I should say the word tolerates or accepts it or what have you, but it's more for the tourism side of it. There's a lot of different things to check out there, so if you do get a chance to go to Amsterdam, I'd recommend going to the red light district. It's interesting to say the least. These are the canals that go all throughout the city. And one of the things I want to note is the fact that these streets are not, that you see on the side here, they are not meant for anything but bikes practically. I mean, the cars can barely fit. You can see where they're parking right on the edge. And even pedestrians have a disadvantage. It's all for the bikes. There's bike lanes everywhere. Literally, you can ride your bike anywhere in the city and get around. In fact, you know, had I known that it was this way, I would have gotten a bike in the first place. They're everywhere, attached to every post and anything you can attach to, and many of them are not even locked. That's what I found very interesting. There's like a commodity that's available just everywhere. It seems that nobody's really concerned. They just put the kickstand on and leave their bike in the middle of the road. It's totally fine. So another thing I wanted to note was the canals. Canals are everywhere in the tourist center anyway. In the center, you see that there are all these boats, similar to what you would see in Venice or something. But this is, you know, tourists would be able to use this, the gondola rides or whatever, similar to Venice. But you also get this as a method of transportation, which I find to be unique, and not many cities have that. So it's something interesting anyway. This is another point that I thought I would cover here. I did a little Google Translate, and what I found that this here, I went to their website as well, unlimited phone, text messaging, and data for your phone, €20 per month. Now, many people would say that's a reasonable price. Other people would say that's expensive. But if you live in Toronto, where I live, this is unrealistic. I couldn't believe it. The price that we pay for a cell phone, you wouldn't believe it. Now, maybe the price of the hardware might be different, but I'm talking about the monthly fees. There is no unlimited data plan as far as I'm aware. I don't even think you can get that. If you did, it would be probably $300-400 minimum per month Canadian. And I have to think to myself, by the way, we pay probably on average, people are paying about $100 Canadian per month for a cell phone with data. And you get a few gigabytes of data, that's it. So I thought to myself, why is the price so high? Is the infrastructure in the Netherlands better than it is in Toronto? Probably not. Maybe it's about equivalent. Similar cell phone towers and similar infrastructure. And so what is it about the price? Well, they gouge you here. That is the purpose. And it's also important to note the fact that a lot of these companies, particularly in Canada, that have such a stranglehold around the government's neck in terms of the pricing, they are the ones who decide what it should be at, and they will get away with it. They seem to be doing so. And I just couldn't believe it. It's not even a fraction of what we pay. So looking around the world, remember that what we pay for certain thing in relation to the average income. That's what's important to note, not just for cell phones, I use that as an example, but your internet, your food, and everything else. Judge it based on what the average person makes, then the price for these so-called, expendable things. I was blown away by that. Van Gogh. I went to the Van Gogh Museum and I saw this painting. Even though you're not allowed to take pictures, I took a picture of it, and it's really blurry, but basically what this is, it's titled here, "The Poor and Money." And essentially these people, right here, in this blurry image, are lining up because they took their pennies and bought lottery tickets for it, hoping that they could be free of their poverty. That's what happens. And the same thing exists today. Not necessarily with the lottery, but you do see that. You see a lot of people who are generally in the lower and middle class that are buying lottery tickets. None of the rich people, they don't do that. And the same thing is going on today, where the poorest of the poor people are trying to get that ticket, no pun intended, out of this mess. But those who run the lottery, those who run the system, are the ones who decide how things will be. So I thought it was interesting that even, this is back 1882, the year, the same thing is going on. Now let's take a flight to Majorca. Majorca is an interesting place in Spain. I've been to other places in Spain and Italy and in this region here, but I wanted to check out this one place. I had a friend located there who gave me some insight, gave me some good information about what's going on in Spain in general, but what's going on in neighboring Barcelona, the independence movement, what's happening within Palma, the city, as well. So I'll cover just a few points from that. Welcome to Germany. Wait a minute. No, this is the beach in Majorca. It is filled with Germans. Now, the German people are using this region here as their hotspot. When they need some sun, they're going, among other places, to Majorca. And this is very evident. The stores had German names. The food was focused around the German people. The store owners were Germans. They were speaking German. Germany, it was practically a German, region, if I didn't know any better. So that's something that I was really finding unique about this area here, that first of all, there's so many people from Germany coming to that location, as well as the fact that it's just different than what you would see in some areas where you go to certain places and you get a mix of tourists, right, from all over the world, whereas it's not really the case here in Majorca, particularly in this area here around the beachfront. This is a busy part of the beach. There were other places, not far that were not that busy, definitely. This is another thing, that you have these beautiful sandcastles that are made right alongside the beach here. Amazing. And of course, the guy only gets a couple pennies for this entire job that he did. Nobody really likes to give. Nobody likes to tithe for any sort of anything that, what that might be. A lot of people don't really tip. I noticed a lot of people don't give up anything. There's different, I'll leave it at that. Looking at this was prevalent as well. These people who make these live in these tents. Now, I don't know if this is where they live permanently or what have you, but perhaps these people are homeless as well. One of the things that I noticed from this region is that there are very few homeless people in compared to what I would see in Toronto. Toronto has homeless people on every single corner of the street. There are panhandlers. There are the squeegee kids. There are people following you around, trying to get money from you, trying to create scams from you. That's what I see to be pervasive throughout Toronto. And in Majorca, didn't really get that picture. And I was going through the literally every street's walking, probably from 8 to 10 hours a day minimum of walking throughout. I spent all day morning until night walking around, essentially visiting different places. This was interesting, to say the least. Looking at this here, what do we got next? The flags are everywhere. There are those who are patriotic to their lovely blue flag, and others who are not. And I think that generally the people there are following what would happen in Catalonia. Will we see independence? If we do see it, I think that very well that independence could follow, or at least the attempt could follow, for those in Majorca as well. But it's very much sheltered from the rest of what's happening in Spain. Spain is suffering today. You can see that the unemployment rate is high, youth unemployment. You can see the banking system is struggling. You can see that they require bailouts. It isn't really a good thing. It's in a mess, quite frankly. But Majorca doesn't seem to be part of that to a great degree. This is what I mentioned. The fact that I mentioned this is that every different region of the world has spots. Each spot may be very different from the other. Just because it's located within Spain doesn't mean it's doing bad. It doesn't mean it's doing good. It just means that you have to look at those pockets and address them for the way they are. Okay, very quickly here. The boats and yachts and everything everywhere. I mean, showing you that there's a lot of money focused in this one area. I've seen German flags on some of these boats. And just to note here that the further you go outward, the bigger the boats are. So you'll see, you know, some of these mid-sized yachts. You see the larger yachts. You can see the cruise ships coming in. Quite interesting that some people have a lot of money, and you can see it focused centrally in certain locations of the world. And this is another image from that. This is from the top of the hill where you can see down, look at the city. And I just wanted to note once again that some economies are doing well, others not so good, even though they may be within that. You got to look at it more granularly, more specifically, to address any particular situation when you're looking at that geographically. You can say Europe is doing bad, but that's an oversimplification of the whole story. I mean, there's much more to it than this, although all the dominoes will fall. I've been saying that for quite some time. If your neighbors start doing badly, unfortunately, you're going to suffer as well. That's the way it is. So that's my trip. Part of it, I've went to probably something like 11 different cities in Europe over the last few years, and it has been quite interesting. I'd like to bring more of these type of videos for you. I hope that it was, you know, you learned a few things and just got a lighter video for today. I mean, I don't always want to bring the same pieces of information to you, and I thought that I would just bring this up to you, see what you think about it. Hope you found it somewhat informative. You got a few nuggets of information out of it. That's all I'll leave you for today. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You could join the 67,000 plus people that are here on the channel. I post videos every single day. So I hope that you will join me here. Take care.